Здравствуйте, меня зовут тетя Рая, мне 72 года, я уже бабушка старая, у меня внуков много, внучат, так что давайте, проходите, смотрите.
Like tens of millions of other pensioners in Russia, Raya Shafigina is struggling to get through another winter. Her pension barely covers rent and utilities, leaving her around $1 a day to spend on food.
Что есть? Вот печенье, вот сухари насушила, есть. Яблочко вчера мне угостили. Уже оно портится, надо.
Raya lives here in Chelyabinsk, a small industrial city located just east of the Ural Mountains. Official statistics put nearly 1 in 5 Russians below the poverty line, and rising food prices are hurting many more.
Так что тут все дорого, поэтому мы самое необходимое покупаем. На колбасу это по 160 рублей килограмм не купишь.
But even though she's barely surviving amid Russia's new dog-eat-dog capitalism, Raya and others like her have nothing but praise for their president Vladimir Putin. She says he saved Russia after the chaos of Boris Yeltsin's rule.
Ну, он все равно наладил порядок. Он все равно сделал, хоть он не маленькую, но мы получаем вовремя. Мы вообще хотели, не знаю, как бабушки вот все говорили, остался бы еще Путин. За его бы проголосовали, пусть бы он молодец.
While the firm-handed reign of Vladimir Putin is coming to an end, his influence is not. He has endorsed this man, Dmitry Medvedev, as his preferred successor, while Putin himself plans to become Prime Minister. And by all accounts, it's a happy arrangement.
The power for the past 8 years has been a burden for Mr. Putin, sometimes hardly bearable, almost unbearable burden, and that's why I believe the happiest day in Putin's life would be the Dmitry Medvedev, new president, inauguration day.
To find out more about Putin's plans for a smooth transition of power, I came to Moscow to meet Stanislav Belkovsky, a well-known Kremlin analyst. Like other Kremlinologists, he believes that Putin and Medvedev have struck a deal similar to the one Putin made with Yeltsin 8 years ago, a deal based on trust alone.
Mr. Putin actually has no way of controlling Mr. Medvedev.
Yeah, of course.
Technically.
Yeah, sure. Putin should hope on Medvedev's willingness and readiness to keep some obligations toward Putin, just as Putin kept his obligations toward Yeltsin. But certainly it does not mean that Putin would keep control over the power system, no.
What is certain is that Putin and Medvedev are leaving no room for opposition parties. In December's parliamentary elections, new electoral rules and a tightly controlled media saw truly independent parties decimated. Not a single opposition figure was successful. By the start of this year, out of 5 independent presidential candidates, only 1 was left. In mid-January, I joined Mikhail Kasyanov in the city of Samara on the Volga River as he toured the regions in search of support.
И 2 марта мы с вами, все граждане России, должны принять наше решение.
Kasyanov is forced to hold his meetings outdoors because local officials refuse him access to indoor venues. But despite a temperature of -19, several hundred people have turned up to hear him speak.
Решение в отношении того, или мы движемся по магистральному пути строительства справедливого российского социального государства, или продолжаем двигаться в этом КГБшно-олигархическом реванше, двигаемся в тоталитарный тупик.
Many of those drawn here are elderly, and Kasyanov knows how to work the crowd, promising to double their pensions and improve local roads. But some have also come here to challenge him, with allegations that Kasyanov amassed a vast personal fortune the last time he was in power.
Когда вы были премьер-министром, в Америке занимали большие займы, и они при вас разворовывались.
Когда я был премьер-министром, мы ни одного займа не взяли, ни в Америке. Я остановил займы и закупку зерна. То, что вы спрашиваете, следите по телевидению, это ложь, которую придумала нынешняя власть. Это ложь.
It soon becomes clear that many in the crowd are not here to support Kasyanov.
Только за Путина, никаких Касьяновых. Это враги народа.
Путина нашла, честно. А Путин честный.
Нет, а что, Путин честный? В нос сунуть.
А Путин честный? Конечно, честный.
Честный. Статья 6, вот вам могу показать документы.
Одни жульки, одной шайки.
Подождите, сходите.
While frustration with corruption still runs deep, many Russians are pleased with Putin's economic management. But Kasyanov believes he's offering something more.
There is an improvement of living standards, and people already understood that to have money is not enough. To have freedom and respect, that is something which absolutely should exist.
By law, Kasyanov must collect 2 million signatures of support to be allowed to run for the presidency, a contest he claims he could win if on a fair and level playing field.
If authorities meet our demand, which is very simple, to implement main constitutional obligation to arrange free and fair elections. If they do this, we will win.
The next day, Kasyanov and his entourage have travelled 500 kilometres north to the city of Penza. Today it's even colder, 23 below zero, but yet another outdoor venue awaits.
Нам навязывается вновь страх. Страх того, что если ты против власти, ты уже какой-то враг.
Today, even fewer people have turned up, barely 150 in a city of 800,000. And here, Kasyanov faces a protest which is far more organised. Local activists from the pro-Putin Nashi youth group are trying to spoil Kasyanov's appearance in Penza with a noisy intervention.
Этот человек как бы имел 2% заключения с каждой сделки, заключенной с подписания каждого договора. Именно поэтому у него есть как бы прозвище Миша 2%. Вот, мы просто пришли выразить свою как бы волю, то, что мы не хотим, чтобы он стал президентом.
With more than 100,000 members, Nashi has the capacity to organise protests anywhere in Russia. And for the past year, they've been openly challenging anyone who dares speak out against Vladimir Putin. But their nationalist rhetoric and rapid growth is causing deep concern in the West.
Вот этих фотографий, которые здесь, которыми оформлены эти стены, они сделаны самими участниками, комиссарами и активистами движения.
At the Moscow headquarters of Nashi, a young activist called Georgy Bezchinsky was eager to show me around. Nashi's blatant pro-Putin stance and its targeting of his political opponents has drawn accusations that it's simply a propaganda tool of the Kremlin. But Georgy disagrees.
Я знаю, как эти акции делаются изнутри, я знаю, что они стоят людям, да, в плане эмоциональном, моральном и физических сил каких-то. Я абсолютно с этим не согласен, потому что люди искренне приходят и выражают действительно свою гражданскую позицию.
The next day, thousands of Nashi activists are staging a protest near the offices of the European Union because some of its members were banned from travelling in Europe.
Здесь взята такая старая аллегория, как по ком звонит колокол. И сегодня колокол звонит по демократии и гражданским свободам в Европе.
Nashi's actions mostly mirror Russia's foreign policy and diplomatic disputes, often with a paranoid anti-Western twist, like the sentiments expressed in the group's recruitment video.
США — это такой огромный толстяк, который раскормил себя и теперь не может остановиться, кушая все больше и больше. Американская еда раскидана по всему миру. Это нефть, газ, металлы, люди. Они придут за едой. Они не могут за ней не прийти. Не потому, что они нас не любят или они нас...
This Cold War rhetoric sits oddly in Moscow, a city which now boasts all the trappings of modern capitalism, including the latest luxury concept stores and fashionable bars. But the bright lights mask a bitter fight for control currently underway in the Kremlin, where Putin has turned on some of his closest colleagues in the security elite, men who'd backed his rise to power.
What Putin has done by anointing Medvedev as his preferred successor is to effectively isolate and cut loose the KGB and FSB stalwarts who supported him, including his Deputy Chief of Staff, Igor Sechin. Now, with so much at stake, the faction led by Sechin is fighting back, and a real Kremlin power struggle is taking place.
Igor Sechin informally represents the country's security elite and has been described as the second most powerful man in Russia. He has no direct links or loyalty to Putin's chosen successor, Dmitry Medvedev, and that makes Sechin a potent political foe.
Mr. Sechin is the only really dangerous enemy. Medvedev has numerous enemies, but the Sechin is the only dangerous one. And certainly there would be struggles still between Medvedev and Sechin, and Medvedev would be doing his best to get rid of Mr. Sechin during his first year in office.
The most telling sign of the battle within is the appearance in Russian news media of stunning allegations about a huge personal fortune amassed by President Putin himself.
Certainly Putin abandons his post not just retired politician and ex-president. He's the richest man in Europe. He estimates his assets personally controlled by himself at the level of $40 billion.
Stanislav Belkovsky's claims about Putin have already been published in Russia and widely reported by the Western media. He says research by his think tank shows the alleged fortune is derived from hidden shareholdings in major Russian and foreign oil companies.
But that's a staggering amount of money. I mean, how do you estimate that?
It's, I believe, his share in Surgutneftegas oil company. It's some stock of Gazprom, gas monopoly controlled by Mr. Putin through a sophisticated network of offshore institutions.
So far, and despite increasing media attention, President Putin has made no comment on the allegations of secret shareholdings.
Не подписывайте. Если обнаруживаете какие-то пропуски, ну забыли поставить субъект или не расписал доверенное лицо, проштамповало, ночью работало, значит, вы его не подписываете, отдаете менеджеру, он складывает...
Campaign workers race to meet the deadline to compile the 2 million signatures Kasyanov needs to run for the presidency. But whispers are already circulating from Kremlin insiders that he will be barred from the election. Kasyanov remains confident.
У нас работают везде самые лучшие специалисты, как вы понимаете, как и прежде в правительстве, так сегодня вне правительства.
But just a week later, the Electoral Commission meets to vote on ending Kasyanov's campaign.
Кто за, прошу голосовать.
And with that, the last truly independent candidate is thrown out of the race. Election officials claiming that 13% of the 2 million signatures were either forged or invalid.
В этой ситуации я призываю всех своих соратников, всех своих сторонников, всех тех граждан России, кто собирался голосовать за меня, не участвовать в этом фарсе.
Just like last December's parliamentary elections, the result of the upcoming presidential election is a foregone conclusion. Dmitry Medvedev will win with a landslide. And although by Western standards the whole scenario might appear to be a sham, the great majority of Russians, including struggling babushkas like Raya, are happy to keep things just the way they are.
Они оба хорошие мужики, ребята, или как сказать. Путин очень много сделал. А сейчас, если Медведев будет, если по его дороге пойдет Медведев, мне тоже кажется, хорошо будет.